The smell of cinnamon and betrayal hung thick in the air as I stared at the slice of apple pie on my plate. My mother-in-law, Martha, beamed at me from across the dining table, her eyes twinkling with what I now recognized as malice. "Go on, Anna, dear. I made it especially for you," Martha cooed, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I forced a smile, my stomach churning. "It looks delicious, Martha. But you know I'm allergic to cinnamon, right?" Martha's expression flickered for a moment before settling back into a mask of innocence. "Oh, silly me, I must have forgotten. How careless of me." My husband, Sam, cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Mom, you've known about Anna's allergy for years. How could you forget?" I watched as Martha's facade cracked slightly. She waved her hand dismissively. "At my age, dear, these things slip the mind. Now who wants coffee?" As Martha bustled off to the kitchen, I exchanged a glance with Sam. He looked apologetic, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. This wasn't the first time his mother had forgotten about my dietary restrictions, and I was beginning to suspect it wasn't accidental at all. "I'm sorry, honey," Sam whispered, reaching for my hand. "I'll talk to her again." I squeezed his fingers, appreciating his support, but knowing it wouldn't change anything. "It's okay. I'm used to it by now." Just then, Sam's father, David, and his brother Kyle entered the dining room, their booming voices filling the space. "Well, well, if it isn't the happy couple," Kyle smirked, clapping Sam on the back. "Still letting the little woman dictate your diet, bro?" I bristled at his words, but before I could respond, David chimed in. Now, Kyle, if Sam wants to live on rabbit food, that's his business, though I don't know how he stays standing without a good steak in him." Their laughter grated on my nerves, and I could feel my cheeks burning. Sam shifted uncomfortably beside me, torn between defending me and not rocking the boat with his family. Martha returned with a tray of coffee cups, her smile back in place. "Here we are. Anna, dear, I made yours decaf. I know how sensitive you are to caffeine." I bit my tongue, knowing full well that I had never mentioned any sensitivity to caffeine. In fact, I relied on my morning cup of joe to get through the day. But arguing would only make things worse. "Thank you, Martha," I said, taking the cup with a tight smile. As the conversation flowed around me, I found myself retreating into my thoughts. How had it come to this? When Sam and I first married, I had been so excited to become part of his family. But over the years, Martha's subtle jabs and forgetfulness had worn me down. David and Kyle's dismissive attitudes didn't help either. I was jolted from my reverie by Kyle's loud voice. "So, Anna, when are you two going to give Mom some grandkids? The biological clock's ticking, you know." The room fell silent, and I felt all eyes on me. Sam tensed beside me, knowing how sensitive this topic was. We had been trying for a baby for months with no success, and the pressure from his family was becoming unbearable. I plastered on a smile, determined not to let them see how much their words hurt. "We're just enjoying being married for now, Kyle, but thanks for your concern." Martha clucked her tongue. "Oh, but darling, you don't want to wait too long. At your age, it only gets harder." Something inside me snapped. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "Excuse me, I need some air." As I rushed out of the dining room, I could hear Sam making excuses for me. But I didn't care. I needed to escape, to breathe, to figure out how I was going to survive this family without losing myself in the process. Standing on the porch, I took deep breaths of the cool evening air. I knew I had a choice to make. I could continue to endure Martha's subtle cruelty and the family's dismissive attitude, or I could take a stand. But how? And at what cost to my marriage? As I heard footsteps approaching from inside, I steeled myself. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. Things couldn't go on like this. Something had to change, and soon. The drive home from Martha's house was tense, the silence between Sam and me as thick as the fog rolling in outside. I could feel the weight of unspoken words pressing down on us, threatening to suffocate what was left of our peace. "I'm sorry about tonight," Sam finally said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "They can be difficult." I let out a humorless laugh. "Difficult? Sam, your mother tried to poison me with cinnamon. Again." He winced. I know, but she's just set in her ways. She doesn't mean any harm." "Doesn't she?" I turned to face him, feeling the frustration bubbling up inside me. "Because it feels pretty intentional from where I'm sitting." Sam sighed, running a hand through his hair. What do you want me to do, Anna? They're my family. And what am I? The words came out sharper than I intended, but I couldn't take them back now. The rest of the ride passed in silence, the tension between us growing with each mile. By the time we pulled into our driveway, I felt like I was going to explode. As soon as we were inside, I headed straight for the bedroom, needing some space to breathe. But Sam followed, his face a mask of concern and guilt. Anna, please, talk to me, he pleaded. I whirled around, the dam finally breaking. What's there to talk about, Sam? Your mother hates me. Your father and brother treat me like I'm invisible. And you just stand there and let it happen. Sam's face fell. That's not fair. You know how much I love you. Do I? I challenged, my voice cracking. Because sometimes it feels like you love keeping the peace more than you love me. The hurt in Sam's eyes was palpable, but I couldn't stop now. All the pain and frustration of the past few years came pouring out. Every time we visit, it's the same thing. Martha forgets about my allergies. David and Kyle make snide comments about my career, my choices, even my body. And you just smile and nod and pretend everything's fine. Sam reached for me, but I stepped back. Anna, please, I'm trying. I don't know how to make everyone happy. Maybe that's the problem, I said softly. You can't make everyone happy, Sam. At some point you have to choose. The silence that followed was deafening. Sam looked lost, torn between his love for me and his loyalty to his family. And in that moment, I realized just how deep this problem ran. I started, my voice barely above a whisper. I think I need some time alone. Sam's eyes widened in panic. What do you mean? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I'm going to stay with my sister for a few days. I need to clear my head, figure out what I want. Anna, no, Sam pleaded, reaching for me again. This time, I let him take my hands. We can work this out. I'll talk to them, I promise. Things will be different. I looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity there, but also the fear. I hope so, Sam. I really do. But I can't keep living like this. Something has to change. As I packed a small bag, Sam hovered nearby, looking lost and helpless. Part of me wanted to comfort him, to tell him everything would be okay. But the truth was, I didn't know if it would be. Standing at the front door, bag in hand, I turned to face my husband one last time. I love you, Sam. But I need to love myself, too. With those words hanging in the air, I stepped out into the night, leaving behind a stunned Sam and an uncertain future. As I drove away, tears streaming down my face, I couldn't help but wonder, was this the beginning of the end, or the start of something new? The road ahead was dark and foggy, much like my thoughts. But one thing was clear. I couldn't go back to the way things were. It was time for a change, no matter how scary that might be. The shrill ring of my phone jolted me awake. I fumbled for it in the dark, my sister's guest room slowly coming into focus. Sam's name flashed on the screen. Anna, you need to come home. His voice was tight with worry. It's my mother. She's here and well, you need to see this. My heart raced as I threw on clothes and rushed out the door. What could Martha possibly be up to now? As I pulled into our driveway, I saw Martha's car parked haphazardly on the lawn. The front door was wide open, and I could hear raised voices from inside. I stepped into chaos. Martha was in our living room, surrounded by grocery bags and cooking utensils. The air was thick with the smell of cinnamon and something burning. Anna, darling, Martha exclaimed, her eyes wild. I'm making you a feast, all your favorites. Sam stood nearby, looking helpless. Mom, please. Anna doesn't eat these things. You know that. Martha waved him off. Nonsense. I'm going to prove to Anna how much I care. No more misunderstandings. I approached cautiously. Martha, what's going on? She turned to me, flour smeared across her cheek. I'm fixing everything, dear. Sam told me how upset you were. I'm going to make it all better with food. My eyes met Sam's over Martha's shoulder. He mouthed, I'm sorry, looking utterly lost. Just then, David and Kyle burst through the open door. Mom, Kyle shouted. What the hell are you doing? David's face was red with anger. Martha, you're embarrassing yourself. Let's go home. Martha's eyes filled with tears. No, I have to make things right. Anna needs to see how much I love her. I felt a twinge of pity, mixed with frustration. This woman had made my life miserable for years, and now she was having a breakdown in my living room. Martha, I said gently, I appreciate the gesture, but this isn't necessary. We need to talk, not whatever this is. She turned to me, desperation in her eyes. But I have to prove it to you. I'm not a monster, Anna. I just wanted to protect my family. Protect them from what? I asked, genuinely curious. Martha's shoulders sagged. From change. From losing them. When Sam married you, I was so afraid he'd forget about us. I thought if I could make you uncomfortable, you'd leave and everything would go back to normal. The room fell silent. Sam looked shocked, David uncomfortable, and Kyle... Was that guilt on his face? I took a deep breath. Martha, your actions hurt me deeply, but this isn't the way to fix things. Suddenly, smoke began billowing from the kitchen. The pie, Martha shrieked, rushing to salvage her creation. As Sam and Kyle dealt with the small fire, I found myself face-to-face with David. His usual bravado was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like shame. Anna, he said gruffly, I'm sorry, we've been unfair to you. I nodded, not quite ready to forgive, but appreciating the effort. It's a start, David. As the chaos settled, we all stood in the wreckage of Martha's misguided attempt at reconciliation. The air was thick with smoke, tension, and the possibility of change. Martha emerged from the kitchen, holding a blackened pie. I've ruined everything, she whispered. I looked at this broken woman, then at Sam, who seemed torn between his wife and his family. In that moment, I realized that the path forward wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary. No, Martha, I said, surprising myself. You haven't ruined everything, but we have a lot of work to do. As I met Sam's gaze, I saw a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could find a way through this mess. But one thing was certain. Things would never be the same again. The weeks following Martha's kitchen meltdown were a strange dance of tentative peace and simmering tension. Sam and I had moved back in together, but the air between us was thick with unspoken words and lingering doubts. Martha, for her part, had been uncharacteristically quiet, her usual barbs replaced by an awkward silence that was almost worse. It was during one of our now mandatory Sunday dinners at Martha and David's that everything changed. As we sat around the dining table, the clinking of silverware the only sound breaking the uncomfortable silence, Martha suddenly stood up. I've made a special dessert, she announced, her voice trembling slightly. Anna, this one's just for you. My stomach clenched as she disappeared into the kitchen. Sam squeezed my hand under the table, a silent show of support. When Martha returned, she was carrying a beautifully decorated cake. It's cinnamon-free, she said, placing it in front of me. And I hope you'll like it. I stared at the cake, then at Martha's hopeful face. This was the moment of truth. Taking a deep breath, I cut a small slice and took a bite. The flavor exploded on my tongue, rich, sweet, and utterly delicious. But more than that, it was the first time in years that Martha had made something specifically catering to my needs. It's amazing, I said, surprised by the emotion in my voice. Martha's face lit up, and for a moment I saw a glimpse of the woman Sam had always insisted his mother could be. But then Kyle snorted, breaking the spell. So what? Now we're all supposed to bend over backwards for Anna's precious diet, he sneered. David cleared his throat uncomfortably. Now, Kyle. But Kyle was on a roll. No, I'm sick of this. Ever since she came into our lives, it's been nothing but drama. Sam used to be fun before he married her. Now look at him. He's whipped. Sam stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. That's enough, Kyle. I watched in shock as the two brothers faced off, years of resentment bubbling to the surface. Martha wrung her hands helplessly, while David looked torn between intervening and letting it play out. You don't get it, do you? Kyle spat. She's tearing this family apart. Something inside me snapped. I stood up, my voice steady despite the anger coursing through me. No, Kyle, your family was broken long before I came along. I just refused to play by your dysfunctional rules. The room fell silent. Kyle gaped at me, unused to being challenged. Sam looked at me with a mixture of pride and concern, but it was Martha's reaction that surprised me most. She's right, Martha said softly. I've been so wrong about everything. David shifted uncomfortably. Martha, don't be ridiculous. We've always... No, David. Martha cut him off, her voice growing stronger. We haven't. We've been cruel and selfish, and it stops now. As the weight of Martha's words sank in, I felt a shift in the air. It was as if a long-held breath had finally been released. But with that release came a new tension, the uncertainty of what came next. I looked at Sam, seeing the conflict in his eyes. He was caught between his love for me and his ingrained loyalty to his family. In that moment, I knew we were at a crossroads. I think, I said slowly, my heart pounding, that we all need to decide what kind of family we want to be, because this can't continue. The silence that followed was deafening. Martha nodded, tears in her eyes. David looked lost while Kyle fumed silently. And Sam reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly. As we stood there, surrounded by the remnants of a disastrous dinner and years of pent-up emotions, I realized that whatever happened next would change everything. The question was, were we all ready for that change? Looking around at the faces of my in-laws, some hostile, some remorseful, all uncertain, I knew that the real battle was just beginning, and I was ready to fight. The tension from that disastrous dinner lingered like a storm cloud over our lives. Sam and I tiptoed around each other, the weight of unspoken words growing heavier by the day. It was during one sleepless night that I finally broke. "Sam," I whispered into the darkness, "we need to talk about your family." He sighed, rolling over to face me. "I know, I don't know how to fix this, Anna." "Maybe it's not about fixing," I said, sitting up. "Maybe it's about facing the truth." And so, in the quiet of our bedroom, I laid it all out. Every slight, every accidental allergen, every dismissive comment. As I spoke, I watched Sam's face crumple, the reality of his family's behavior finally sinking in. I knew some of it, he admitted, his voice breaking, but I didn't want to believe it was intentional. "God, Anna, I'm so sorry." His admission was both a relief and a fresh wound. "Why didn't you say anything?" Sam ran a hand through his hair, looking lost. "They're my family, I thought if I just tried harder, if we gave them time, they'd come around." "And now?" I asked, my heart pounding. He met my gaze, determination replacing the uncertainty in his eyes. "Now, we fight back. Together." The next morning, we formulated a plan. We would confront his family one last time, lay everything on the table, and demand change. It was risky, but it felt like our only option. As we pulled up to Martha and David's house that evening, my stomach was in knots. Sam squeezed my hand reassuringly before we stepped out of the car. Martha greeted us at the door, her smile faltering at our serious expressions. "Is everything all right? We need to talk," Sam said firmly. "All of us." David and Kyle were already in the living room, eyebrows raised at our unexpected visit. As we all sat down, the air thick with tension, I took a deep breath and began. "For years," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I've endured subtle cruelty and dismissal from this family. It stops now." Kyle scoffed, but Sam silenced him with a glare. "She's right. Mom, Dad, Kyle, the way you've treated Anna is unacceptable." Martha's face paled. "But we've been trying." "No," I cut in, years of frustration finally boiling over. "Trying would be respecting my allergies, not using them against me. Trying would be treating me like family, not an intruder." David shifted uncomfortably. "Now, see here." But Sam wasn't finished. "I've let this go on too long. I love you all, but I love Anna too. And if you can't accept her, truly accept her, then—" He trailed off, the unspoken ultimatum hanging in the air. Kyle jumped to his feet, face red with anger. "So that's it? You're choosing her over your own blood?" "I'm choosing respect and kindness," Sam shot back. "Something you all seem to have forgotten." As the argument escalated, with accusations flying and old wounds reopening, I watched Martha. She sat silently, her eyes darting between her sons, her husband, and me. Suddenly, she stood up. "Enough," she cried, her voice cracking. I've been horrible, to all of you." The room fell silent as Martha continued, tears streaming down her face. "I was so afraid of losing my family that I pushed everyone away. Anna, I'm truly sorry." Her words hung in the air, a fragile offering of peace. But as I looked around at the stunned faces of Sam's family, I realized this was just the beginning. The real test would be what came next. "I appreciate that, Martha," I said carefully. "But apologies aren't enough. We need real change." Sam nodded, standing beside me. "We're giving you all one last chance, but if things don't improve, if we can't find a way to be a real family, we're done." The silence that followed was deafening. David looked shell-shocked. Kyle fumed silently, and Martha looked both terrified and hopeful. As we left that night, the future uncertain but full of possibility, I knew we had just taken the first step on a difficult journey. The question now was, would Sam's family join us, or would we be forced to walk away for good? New Year's Day arrived with a mixture of hope and trepidation. As Sam and I pulled up to his parents' house, I couldn't shake the feeling that this visit would be different from all the others. "Ready?" Sam asked, squeezing my hand. I nodded, steeling myself, as I'll ever be. The moment we stepped inside, I knew something had changed. The air wasn't thick with tension as usual. Instead, there was an almost palpable sense of effort. Martha greeted us with a tentative smile. "Happy New Year, dears. Come in, come in." As we entered the dining room, my jaw dropped. The table was laden with an extravagant feast, but what caught my eye were the carefully labeled dishes. Cinnamon-free, allergen-safe, Anna's favorite. I turned to Martha, speechless. She wrung her hands nervously. I hope I got it right this time." Sam's eyes were wide with surprise. "Mom, this is incredible." Even David and Kyle seemed subdued, watching the scene unfold with a mix of curiosity and discomfort. As we sat down to eat, the conversation was stilted but civil. Martha kept glancing at me as if seeking approval. I found myself actually enjoying the food, savoring flavors I'd been denied for years in this house. Midway through the meal, Sam cleared his throat. "Actually, we have a surprise for you, Mom." Martha looked up, startled. "For me?" Sam nodded, and I reached into my bag, pulling out a small wrapped package. "Happy birthday, Martha." The room fell silent. Martha stared at the gift, then at us, her eyes filling with tears. "But my birthday was last week. How did you—" "We remembered," I said softly. "We've always remembered." Martha's hands shook as she unwrapped the gift, a beautiful photo album filled with family pictures, including several of her with Sam and me that she'd never seen before. "I don't understand," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Sam leaned forward. "Mom, we want to be a family, a real family, but that means acknowledging and celebrating everyone, including you." David shifted uncomfortably. "Martha, dear, I didn't realize we'd forgotten your birthday." Kyle, for once, looked ashamed. "Yeah, Mom, I'm sorry." As Martha flipped through the album, her tears falling freely now, I felt a shift in the room. It was as if a long frozen ice was finally beginning to thaw. But then Kyle, perhaps uncomfortable with the emotional atmosphere, reverted to his old ways. "Well, isn't this touching?" he sneered. "Saint Anna saves the day again." "Kyle," David warned, but the damage was done. Martha's head snapped up, her eyes flashing with an anger I'd never seen before. "That's enough, Kyle! Can't you see what your brother and Anna are trying to do? They're offering us a chance to be better, to be the family we should have been all along." Kyle stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly. "Oh, so now you're on their side? What happened to family loyalty?" "This is family loyalty," Martha shot back. "True loyalty means holding each other accountable, not enabling bad behavior." As Kyle stormed out, slamming the front door behind him, the room fell into a stunned silence. Martha looked shell-shocked, as if she couldn't believe her own words. David cleared his throat. "Martha, I think we need to talk about a lot of things." Sam and I exchanged glances, realizing we were witnessing a seismic shift in family dynamics. But as hopeful as this moment was, I knew we weren't out of the woods yet. Martha turned to us, her eyes brimming with a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. "Anna, Sam, thank you for not giving up on us. On me." As I looked at this woman, this flawed, complex woman who had caused me so much pain but was now trying so hard to change, I realized we were standing on the precipice of something monumental. The question was, could we all take that final terrifying leap towards real change? The answer, I knew, would determine not just the future of our family, but the very core of who we all were. And as I met Sam's gaze across the table, I silently prayed we were ready for whatever came next. The days following the New Year's dinner were a whirlwind of emotions and tentative steps towards reconciliation. Martha had been calling more frequently, her voice tinged with a newfound warmth that both comforted and unsettled me. It was during one of these calls that she invited Sam and me over for coffee, insisting she needed to talk to us about something important. As we pulled up to the house, my heart raced. Sam squeezed my hand reassuringly. "Whatever happens, we're in this together," he said. Martha greeted us at the door, her smile nervous but genuine. As we settled in the living room, I noticed the photo album we'd given her prominently displayed on the coffee table. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Martha began, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "About my behavior, about our family, about everything." I held my breath, sensing we were on the cusp of something monumental. Anna, Martha turned to me, her eyes brimming with tears. I owe you the biggest apology. My actions were inexcusable. I was so afraid of losing my son that I nearly drove him away entirely. The words I'd longed to hear for years hung in the air between us. But instead of feeling victorious, I felt a complex mix of emotions washing over me. Martha, I started, my voice surprisingly steady. I appreciate your apology. But I need to know, why? Why did you treat me that way for so long? Martha's face crumpled. I was jealous and scared. When Sam married you, I felt like I was being replaced. I thought if I could make you uncomfortable enough, you'd leave and everything would go back to how it was. Her admission hit me like a physical blow. Years of pain, of feeling unwelcome and unloved, all because of one woman's insecurity. Sam leaned forward, his voice tight with emotion. Mom, how could you think that? Anna was never a threat to you. I know that now, Martha whispered. But back then, I let my fears control me. I became someone I didn't recognize. As Martha's tears fell freely, I felt my own eyes welling up. The weight of years of resentment pressed down on me, threatening to suffocate us all. Suddenly, the front door burst open. Kyle stormed in, his face red with anger. What's going on here? Another family meeting without me? David appeared behind him, looking flustered. Kyle, please, we were just what? Kyle spat. Letting Anna take over the family, turning Mom against us? The tension in the room skyrocketed. Sam stood up, positioning himself between Kyle and me. That's enough, Kyle. This isn't about taking sides, it's about fixing what's broken. Kyle laughed bitterly. Broken? The only thing broken here is your loyalty to your real family. Martha rose shakily to her feet. Kyle, stop this. Anna is family. I've been wrong for so long, and it's time we all faced the truth. As Kyle's face contorted with rage, I saw years of family dynamics playing out before me. The favored son, the peacemaking mother, the distant father, all roles that had contributed to this toxic environment. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. Standing up, I faced Kyle directly. I'm not here to take anyone's place. I'm here because I love Sam, and I want us all to be a real family. But that can't happen until we address the real issues. Kyle's eyes narrowed. What issues? The way you treat your mother, for one, I said, my voice gaining strength. The way this family has ignored her needs, her birthday, her very existence as anything other than a caretaker. Martha gasped softly behind me, and I could feel Sam's supportive presence at my side. Who do you think you are? Kyle snarled, taking a step towards me. But I stood my ground. I'm your sister-in-law. I'm Sam's wife, and I'm done being the scapegoat for this family's problems. The room fell silent, the tension palpable. David looked lost, Kyle fumed, and Martha looked at me with a mixture of awe and gratitude that nearly broke my heart. As we stood there, on the precipice of either total destruction or true healing, I realized that everything, our future, our family, our very sense of self, hung in the balance. The next few moments would determine not just the fate of our relationships, but the course of all our lives, and I was ready for whatever came next. The weeks following our confrontation were a whirlwind of change. Martha, to everyone's surprise, was the catalyst. One sunny morning, she called us all together for a family meeting. I've made a decision, she announced, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. I'm moving out. I need to find myself, away from all of this. The room erupted in chaos. David sputtered in disbelief. Kyle raged about family loyalty, but Sam looked at his mother with a mixture of pride and understanding that brought tears to my eyes. As the dust settled, Martha turned to me. Anna, I owe you so much. You showed me what real strength looks like. In that moment, years of resentment melted away. I hugged her, both of us crying, years of pain and misunderstanding finally healing. Martha's decision sent shockwaves through the family. David, lost without his wife to manage every aspect of his life, floundered. Kyle, suddenly without his mother's constant support, faced the harsh reality of his own shortcomings. Months passed, and we watched in awe as Martha blossomed. She rented a small apartment, took art classes, even started dating. The woman who had once been my nemesis was now a source of inspiration. I never knew life could be this full, Martha confided during one of our now regular coffee dates. I spent so many years trying to control everything, I forgot to actually live. Meanwhile, David and Kyle struggled. Without Martha's financial management, they faced a series of setbacks. Kyle lost his job, unable to function without constant coddling. David, forced to fend for himself, realized how much he'd taken Martha for granted. It was during a particularly difficult family dinner that everything came to a head. Kyle, drunk and belligerent, lashed out at Martha. "You abandoned us," he shouted. "Some mother you are." I watched, heart pounding, as Martha straightened her spine. "No, Kyle, I didn't abandon you. I saved myself, and it's time you grew up and did the same." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, to everyone's shock, David spoke up. "She's right, son," he said softly. "We've all been living in a fantasy. It's time we faced reality." As Kyle stormed out, slamming the door behind him, I felt a shift in the air. It was as if the last piece of a long unsolved puzzle had finally fallen into place. In the months that followed, our family underwent a transformation. David, humbled by his struggles, began to appreciate Martha in ways he never had before. They started dating again, rediscovering each other as equals. Kyle, after hitting rock bottom, finally sought help for his dependency issues. And Sam and I? We found ourselves in a new role, the stable center of a family learning to love and respect each other. It was on a warm summer evening, as we all gathered in Martha's new backyard for a barbecue, that I fully realized how far we'd come. Martha, radiant in her newfound confidence, was laughing with Sam as they grilled. David was actually helping, a novelty that still surprised us all. Even Kyle, sober and subdued, was making an effort to engage positively. As I watched them, a wave of emotion washed over me. The journey had been long and painful, but the destination, it was more beautiful than I could have imagined. Sam came over, wrapping an arm around me. "You okay?" he asked, noticing my tears. I nodded, leaning into him, just thinking about how far we've come, how different things could have been if we'd given up. He kissed my forehead. "You never gave up on any of us, even when we didn't deserve it." As the sun set, casting a golden glow over our imperfect but healing family, I felt a sense of peace I'd never known before. The road ahead wouldn't always be smooth. Real families never are, but we had the tools and the love to face whatever came our way. Martha caught my eye across the yard and raised her glass in a silent toast. I raised mine in return, acknowledging the journey we'd shared. From bitter enemies to unlikely allies, we'd forged a bond stronger than I'd ever thought possible. As night fell and laughter filled the air, I realized that this messy, complicated, beautiful family was everything I'd ever wanted. And it had been worth every moment of struggle to get here. In the end, it wasn't about winning or losing, about right or wrong. It was about growth, forgiveness, and the courage to change. And as I looked around at the faces of my family, my real family, I knew that we had all, in our own ways, found the strength to do just that.